Hello, everybody. My name is Grant McDonald. I'm Director of Financial Crime Market Engagement at Experian, with a focus principally on business information. And just going to cover off in the next 10 minutes a bit of insight around to our data coverage, specifically looking at Know Your Business. So before I start today, I just want to cover off what are the kind of risks that you need to identify if you've got business applications coming through, or indeed you've got business customers. So you absolutely need to understand whether that business is associated with corruption, terrorist financing, or money laundering. In the top right-hand side here, you can see that these are the common risks, certainly in the banking and the financial services market, that you need to look out for. So is the business cash intensive? Is it a money service business? So is it transferring money around the world, perhaps a Western Union sticker on the shop front? Is the business or its key parties associated with any high-risk jurisdictions, whether that be the country or the individual behind that business? And then finally, there is an obligation to check whether companies are on the Charities Commission, Gambling Commission, and a number of official registers. So once you've understood the inherent risks of a business, you really want to understand the risks that are associated to the people behind the business. So first thing you have to do is understand who is the ultimate beneficial owner, and make sure that you can do that determination around ownership and control. So one of the bits that Experian have developed is a proprietary algorithm that very quickly identifies who that ultimate beneficial owner is. Now, on doing that, we've got some capabilities that we're not going to go into too much detail in today, but specifically focused on the consumer. So once we've identified that ultimate beneficial owner, are you able to, first of all, authenticate them, make sure they are who they say they are, make sure they're not on any fraud databases, and make sure that they're not on any PEPs, sanctions, adverse media lists as well. So we've got a part of our business, identity and fraud, which looks after all of those elements associated with the key party. But as I said at the beginning, my area of focus is business, so we're going to focus on the KYB aspects today and really look at what are the data sources that are available through Experian that can enable you to acutely identify where financial crime risk exists, and perhaps more importantly, where does it not exist, and in identifying where it doesn't exist, then you can confidently suppress customers out of any outreach communication. So these are the Experian KYB data sources. If you have a look at the top left, you'll see that you've got Companies House in there, commonly viewed as the only UK company register. And I would challenge that's not really the case. So if you're looking for trusted sources to really validate a company name, address, and the business nature, there are other UK registers that you can really draw upon. And if we're Experian have ingested data from the Charities Commission, you've got the Gambling Commission in here as well, Financial Conduct Authority, VAT Register, Jersey Financial Services Commission as well. Okay. So once you're comfortable that the business exists, one common issue that I'm observing across the market right now still is the case. A number of businesses are using Google or internet search engines to really verify whether the trading address they've been provided is associated with the business. So if you have a look at this top right-hand box, we've gone to extraordinary lengths at Experian to ingest data from licensed providers. So licensed providers like Care Quality Commission, Food Standards Agency, licensed premises, you've got data in from Edubase as well. I'll not read through all of them, but the purpose there is to, one, actually see whether we can use the data from them to corroborate and verify trading address details, but it is just another means of us being able to understand business nature and trading activity risk as well. So we're getting an incremental 1 million trading locations by using the licensed provider data. Now, in addition to that, we've got your old, tried and tested data sources, your directories, your market location, and your Thompson data, which really help, certainly with the non-registered business population. With more of you being challenged with identifying MSBs, so we've got data coming through from local data company for money service businesses. And in the next few months, we will fully ingest HMRC's database of all MSBs that have an obligation to register with HMRC. I guess the final bit, not on here, but I mentioned at the beginning, is the proprietary algorithm that we've created to enable you to identify the ultimate beneficial owner, and indeed understand ownership and control. So in this next slide, we just start to look at KYC data sources and all of the records that we've got within the Experian database. I guess when we go and look at ingesting data from all of these data sources, the primary purpose is to maximize the coverage, to make sure that irrespective of the composition of your customer base, whether you're over-indexed in registered businesses rather than non-registered, or indeed it might well be the case that you've got more charities than non-registered businesses, we can make sure that we've got the data available to give you that coverage. And therefore, in this next slide, it starts to better illustrate that really nice dispersion of how these data sources can be used to make sure that we're covering all aspects of the UK business universe. So as you would expect, in blue, registered businesses, you're going to see good coverage from Companies House, and indeed for your charities, naturally your Scottish and your England and Wales Charities Commission are going to have good data there. It's just nice to see that if you look at all of these satellite sources that I mentioned, FSA, Food Standards Agency, Local Data Company, Financial Conduct Authority, and so on, you've got a good even spread of entity type across those different data sources. So at this point, I want to start to look at how can you derive value from this data to more accurately discriminate where risk does and doesn't exist. And here we can see here that 3% of live companies in the UK are charities, and 14% are either sole traders, LLPs, or partnerships. And they're often denoted as higher risk to PLCs and limited companies, as an example. So the next slide looks at how we can understand high-risk sectors. So high-risk sectors we would define, and actually the regs define, as being those businesses that are involved in MSBs, Bureau de Change, defence, arms dealings, pawnbrokers. And what this left slide here really nicely illustrates is if you rely solely on Companies House, you really are limiting your ability to identify where these high-risk businesses exist. And actually, it's only by leveraging the satellite sources that we've got available that you really do see a market increase, over 90%, in terms of your ability to identify those businesses that are associated with these high-risk sectors. And even from a cash intensive, so your retail, pubs, clubs and restaurants, whilst you do get good coverage from Companies House, again, you're getting a sizable uplift from the satellite sources in terms of being able to identify quite clearly that the business that you're dealing with is a cash intensive business. And then again, we've got the Gambling Commission here as a quick example just to show the uplift that you get leveraging the Gambling Commission data over those organisations that are identified as being associated with gambling in Companies House. So as I mentioned earlier on, we've got MSB data, so money service business data, coming from Local Data Company. And with us now ingesting data from HMRC, we've now got 44,000 new MSBs feeding into the Experian database. Now that's an additional 19,000 MSBs over and above what we got from Local Data Company. Now that is in no way intended to discredit the data from LDC. It's really valuable in that the LDC data can give us shopfront images and give us clear evidence to say that they are an MSB. But you will find that there will be MSBs on the LDC database that are not on the HMRC database, and vice versa. So if we have a look at this example here, we can see in the postcode district E1 in London, HMRC have identified 105 MSBs that LDC haven't been able to. If we have a look at the key parties behind the business, you've got your director, your UBOs and your PSCs. Now, first in the UK, every company has an obligation now to let Companies House know who the person of significant control is. Sadly, Companies House are data processors. They're not doing anything to audit the validity of the data being presented. And therefore, we can see here, curiously, that we've got more than 446,000 UBOs being identified using Experian's proprietary UBO algorithm over and above what's being held on PSC. And therefore, what that allows you to do in meeting your AML5D directive, new legislation that's come through, you can start to compare and contrast. How does the UBO that you captured compare with the UBO that exists within the Experian database versus what's held within the PSC, which Experian have also ingested, which means we can enable you to dynamically and immediately identify where the UBO that you've identified differs to that held on the PSC, and this will meet the regulatory obligation that you have to let Companies House know that a discrepancy exists. One of the areas that you have to look at is understanding whether the business or its key parties are associated with any high-risk jurisdictions. So we've identified 60,358 UK-based UBOs that are associated with high-risk countries. Now, high-risk countries has been defined as those that exist on the CPI, so that's the Corruption Perception Index, and specifically we've looked at the 30th highest risk countries in the world as defined by the CPI using their CPI score. So again, using that combination of jurisdiction data and by leveraging the sector data that's available through these satellite sources, we can start to really firmly understand jurisdiction risk, business nature risk, business activity risk, and just make sure that you really can be confident in, if you are going to try and make that transition from pure reviews to event-driven reviews, you can be comfortable that you're not suppressing out customers where risk has not been properly identified. Now, I mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation that people are still using internet search engines to verify trading address. And therefore, we've created a business verification API, which will allow you to quickly pop in a company trading address and then verify against all of these data sources that I've spoken about today. And to better illustrate this, if you have a look at this company here, we've got A1 Motor Services Limited. And we've got a trading address and we've got the registered address. The trading address is Technology House, 47 to 49 Lawrence Street in York. And the registered address is subtly different. We've got that at James Nicholson Link in York with a different postcode, YO34WG. And plus we can use Companies House data to verify the registered office. We can see that we've got an exact match there. What's really valuable is that for the trading address, where previously you would have been unable to verify that trading address, we're now using Local Data Company, the Financial Conduct Authority, and the Food Standards Agency in this example to make sure you can have confidence that that business is associated to that trading address. And furthermore, we can give you photographic evidence and even a link to Google Images and their map to see exactly where they are located. So all of the data insights I've spoken to today about are all predicated on our ability to match the data. So hopefully by at this point in the webinar, you feel confident that Experian has got some very interesting and unrivaled data coverage. But really, for us to be able to apply that insight, we really need to have this. We really need to have the skills to be able to match your data, so that we can then subsequently enrich it with these data sources. So at Experian, we've got our own, again, proprietary matching algorithms created to really link your data into this data. We're data junkies. We don't like to throw any data away, and therefore we've got historic data on businesses going back for over 30 years. So in this example, I think it's important to make the distinction that sometimes the data you send to us won't be accurate and up to date. So in this example, we can see A1 Computer Management Limited, and looking at it very briefly, your address looks very, very, very good. You've got Forsythia Close, Rugby, Northamptonshire. But what we do have is we've got all of the right address fields, but perhaps in the wrong place. You don't have the town in the town field, you don't have the postcode in the postcode field. And therefore, the first thing that we would do is we'd fix this. We'd make sure that we've got all of the right data items introduced into the correct corresponding fields. Now, it's doing that we can then match it to our database. I mean, here we can see that on A1 Computer Management, we have got an exact match. All of the data that we have and the data that you provided matches perfectly, and therefore we're really confident that we can give this a match score of 100. It's got our maximum confidence that we've hit a good match. But little do you know, though, that business has actually changed address on the 3rd of August 2011. And furthermore, it's had a company name change on the 22nd of May 2014. And therefore, what we're uniquely able to do is taking in your clean data but old data, we can translate that into actually who is the customer now and where are they located. So really, for the purpose of today's webinar, the two areas of focus I really want to get across was matching and the coverage. So hopefully through this very brief and short webinar today, you've got greater competence and understanding in terms of how Experian can enrich your information with key and critical KYC data sources that will enable you to make that transition to from pre-audit reviews to event-driven reviews and realise some of the significant operational savings that you can yield as a result of that. Thank you very much.